All right, guys, so a little Honda rehab today. So I see this a lot on old Hondas because you can't really get the OEM replacement fuses for these big ones. And then also this bolt right here was broken off. It was actually from us removing it, but it was stripped in there sideways, not making good contact. Just overall not a great condition fuse box. Could you remove these, put OEM ones back in it? Sure. Could you take this out and replace it? Sure. But we actually had a better condition one that we put in it to begin with. All factory fuses, 80 amp here, good holes here, OEM components here. So pop this in, blew it out, pop this in, cleaned it up. A few more things that I noticed that were kind of old and worn out on the harness that we replaced. Also on the alternator over here, it had just a single 10 millimeter nut on the bottom and then a 10 millimeter nut on the top, but it didn't have the washer on there for the alternator. And he was having issues with this car charging, so we're going to replace that all back to OEM. Which we already did to help with that. We had a few wires that weren't connected for the fog lights that could have been grounded out on the car. So we went ahead and pulled those off. And then the unfortunate thing about this one is that someone had installed a major malfunction on this alarm here. So we pulled this out. This is the starter wire in between here. We pulled the ignition out. The ignition had been cut down here to splice into the alarm, which only left it with, this is the starter wire right here, the black and white, which actually this wire runs all the way out to the external, and it's been cut and spliced here, obviously because of the car alarm, but you can't even see the black and white wire where it even actually continues or goes through, which it looks like it was actually spliced over here, which God knows what the hell is going on here. There was a kill switch on here, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go through this. He was having issues with the car not starting, with it not charging, several issues going on with this car. So we're going to get all this stuff cleaned up and see what we can pull out and see what we can leave. And hopefully we can get this car back into a better situation, because stuff like this, when you don't have the right size wire and then you run two wires for one wire, and I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's cut that we don't even know what it goes to yet. You know, stuff like this that's been stripped but doesn't going to anything. So yeah, it's pretty unfortunate because I see this a lot on some of these cars, and man, it's just a huge headache from people doing poor installs on alarms and other sorts of things that cause these cars to have so many issues. So we're gonna go through and see if we can get this fixed up, and we'll check back. All right, well, it's alive for now. Still gotta do a few more tests, but yeah, had to swap out the whole ignition harness and basically pull all the wires away from the alarm that was in there. New outboard fuse box, redo the alternator on the outside. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the positive on the battery, see if it stays running, see if we fix the continuity issue between them, and then we'll go ahead and put everything back together inside and kind of take out some stuff that's not needed. And we'll try to get this thing back on the road and get it back adjusted. All right, so as everyone knows, distributors, this is a non-OEM LS/B20, whatever, non-VTEC. We had previously given him this rotor because the rotor that he had in there didn't even have a bolt in it. So when this distributor came to him, it had a rotor that had like a little sleeve or something, like it was like a shim that was pressed in there, and then it was basically shoved onto the shaft. Well, obviously over time that didn't work because the plastic cracked, it released the tension, and it just fell off and jacked up everything inside. So we gave him this one, which was also not in the best condition, but it was the only OEM one we had at the time. And if you look at it on here, when I put it on here, you can see this is the play that's actually on the shaft from the previous one, like this not being the exact size as OEM, and just all sorts of different parts that we've mixed and matched. So I did find another OEM one. This is actually off of an LS OEM LS distributor, and it took me a while to get this off because it was pretty corroded inside. But when I slip it on here, you can see that, I mean, it has like little to zero play on that now. So we're going to put this one on and use this one, obviously, because when I had the car on, I could hear this actually making noise in the distributor, and I thought it was something to do with the valve train, but it wasn't. It was just the distributor that was making noise. So we're going to put this one on for him and get this thing fired up. I already replaced the alternator on it, and that seems to be working a lot better than the old one did because the battery light's not on. I haven't pulled the battery positive off to see if it stays running, but I'm guessing that that was probably the issue. So I'm gonna get all this put together and then we'll go over everything we did. New alternator on, reset the distributor, put all that on. I can actually hear that it sounds way, way different. If you heard on the video earlier, it had a really high rev. It was kind of searching for an idle, and it's still kind of searching for an idle, but I don't have the intake on and all that. But after switching out all that stuff, the box, checking all this, I did confirm that we don't need the battery. So that means that the alternator is definitely in good shape and powering everything. And that's one way to check it if you don't have any other way. So you can see if your alternator is working. Obviously start the car, pull the positive. If the car is still running, you know it's in good shape. And as of right now, it looks like everything is probably working properly. I got to put some stuff together back inside, but we're going to go ahead and put this back on and let this run for a little bit, make sure nothing else pops up. But looks like once I put it back together, we should be good to go. Wondering how I bypassed the ignition. So this ignition obviously could have still been on there. It doesn't really matter. I didn't have to pull that off, but I did because I noticed that this piece was broken off down here as well. And this is the rat's nest that I was talking about that they had put through. So this is the one that I had that was just a spare one basically that I just keep to do stuff like this. And then this is his stock one. So this is part of it right here. And then this is the other part of it right here, which I don't even want to move all this stuff because I'm afraid it's gonna start sparking and catch on fire down here or something. But this is the one that leads to the power, and then this is the one that the starter goes through and all that, which you can see the starter wire there. And a bunch of this stuff has been chopped off and cut and spliced into and all kinds of stuff. So if your stuff looks like this and your car's having issues, just go ahead and either ditch it, pull it out, or get a spare ignition like this that you can run in there and jump it and make sure that nothing else in the car is having issues. If it's just this is pretty easy to replace. But if it's causing a lot of issues later on down the road, and if this, God forbid, catches on fire or shorts out a bunch of stuff and you can't figure it out, then you're gonna have a lot bigger issues down the road. So just always don't take for granted that what everyone else does is good work, and don't expect it to last a really, really long time. Because I mean, this is a EJ Civic, so I mean this car is almost 30 years old or is, and all that stuff is just, I mean, a lot of that, it's just unacceptable to have stuff like that laying around. So we'll put this back together and get it back to the customer. Car is done. Put back together, alternator works, everything works like it's supposed to. New fuse box out here, cleaned off the battery ground terminal over there. Bad alternator here. All this stuff came out of it because it was just all haggard and chopped up, and it had double splices on the same wire for God knows what. All this, so cut off all those, pulled that out, replaced the whole ignition. So there's a new ignition switch in there now. Put everything back together. There's still some wires hanging down under there because I don't know what he wants to do with them yet, because it is for the alarm. But everything works like it's supposed to, turns on, primes, starts. So we're gonna call that good for now. If he wants to do more stuff, then he'll let us know, but I think we're good for now.